Ethan was always a thrill seeker, constantly searching for the next adrenaline rush. He'd heard countless stories about the deep web, but he had never ventured there himself. One night, curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to explore it. Using a Tor browser, he navigated through various anonymous sites, feeling a mix of excitement and dread. After hours of aimless browsing, he found a site that piqued his interest: the Forgotten Forum. It had a simple, old-school layout, reminiscent of early internet forums, but with a dark, eerie vibe. The forum had only a few sections, each with cryptic titles like The Shadows, Whispered Secrets, and Lost Souls. Despite the ominous names, Ethan couldn't resist diving in. He clicked on The Shadows and began reading the threads. Most posts were vague, with users sharing disturbing experiences and bizarre encounters. One thread, in particular, caught his eye. It was titled The Game of Shadows, and the original post was from a user named The Gatekeeper. The Game of Shadows is simple, the post read. Find the hidden message in this forum, and you will uncover a truth about the world that few know. But beware, the shadows are always watching. Ethan, ever the daredevil, decided to take on the challenge. He spent hours scouring the forum, searching for clues. The posts were filled with riddles, hidden links, and coded messages. Slowly but surely, he began to piece together the puzzle. As he delved deeper, he noticed something strange. The more he uncovered, the more he felt like he was being watched. His phone would buzz with notifications that disappeared when he checked them, and his webcam light flickered on and off without explanation. One night, while he was deeply engrossed in decoding a particularly complex message, his computer screen flickered and went black. Panic set in as he frantically tried to restart it. When it finally came back on, the forum was gone. In its place was a single message. Congratulations, Ethan. You have been chosen. Prepare yourself. Ethan's heart raced. He hadn't told anyone about his quest. How did they know his name? As he pondered this, his phone buzzed with a notification. It was a text from an unknown number. Look outside. His apartment was on the 3rd floor, and he rarely opened the windows. But now, compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity, he went to the window and peeked through the blinds. His blood ran cold. Across the street, a figure stood in the shadows, looking directly at his window. The figure was motionless, almost blending into the darkness. Ethan couldn't make out any features, but he could feel the intensity of its gaze. He stumbled back from the window, his mind racing. Who was this person? How had they found him? Desperate for answers, Ethan returned to his computer. The Forgotten Forum was back, and a new message awaited him from the Gatekeeper. You have seen the shadows. Now, you must embrace them. His hands trembled as he typed a response. What do you want from me? The reply was instant. To see if you are worthy, follow the instructions you find next. Before he could react, his computer screen shifted to display a series of coordinates and a time. 40.7128 degrees north, 74.0060 degrees west, 3 a.m. He recognized the coordinates immediately. It was an address in a desolate part of the city. Ethan knew this was a bad idea, but something compelled him to go. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of foreboding, he made his way to the location at the appointed time. It was an abandoned warehouse, its windows boarded up, and graffiti covered its walls. With his heart pounding, he entered the building. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the only sound was the echo of his footsteps. He navigated through the dark hallways, his flashlight casting eerie shadows on the walls. In the center of the warehouse, he found a small room. The door was ajar, and he pushed it open, revealing a single chair and a laptop on a rickety table. The laptop screen flickered to life as he approached. A message appeared. Welcome, Ethan. Sit and learn the truth. He hesitated but then sat down, his curiosity overpowering his fear. The laptop began to play a video. It showed a group of people, their faces obscured, performing a strange ritual. They chanted in a language he didn't recognize, and in the center of their circle was a figure, one that looked eerily similar to the one that had watched him from across the street. As the video continued, Ethan realized with growing horror that the ritual was meant to summon something ancient and malevolent. The final frame of the video showed a message: "The shadows are real. They live among us, and now they have chosen you." The laptop screen went black, and the room was plunged into darkness. Ethan's flashlight flickered and died, leaving him in complete darkness. Panic set in as he tried to find his way out, but the shadows seemed to close in around him. Then, he heard it, a whisper, so faint it was almost imperceptible. "Ethan." He spun around, but there was no one there. The whispers grew louder, surrounding him, echoing off the walls. He stumbled through the darkness, his mind racing with fear. Finally, he found the door and burst out of the warehouse, gasping for breath. He ran all the way home, not daring to look back. That night, and many nights after, the whispers haunted him. No matter where he went, he could feel the shadows watching, waiting. The forgotten forum was gone, leaving no trace of its existence. But Ethan knew the truth. Once you see the shadows, they never let you go. Late one night, alone in his apartment, David couldn't sleep. An insomniac by nature, he often found himself delving into the darker corners of the internet, seeking out the bizarre and the unexplained. His latest fascination was the deep web, a place rumored to harbor the most hidden and sinister parts of human nature. With a few keystrokes and some technical know-how, he accessed it through a Tor browser, eager to explore. The deep web was a labyrinth of cryptic forums, illicit marketplaces, and obscure chat rooms. As he navigated through the myriad of anonymous sites, he stumbled upon a link named The Whispering Web. Intrigued by the ominous name, David clicked on it. The site loaded slowly, revealing a minimalist interface with nothing but a chat box in the center. Above it, a message read, "Welcome to the Whispering Web. Here, secrets are shared and fears are realized." David smirked at the melodramatic tagline and began typing. "Hello," he wrote, waiting for a response. The screen remained blank for a few moments before a reply appeared. "Welcome, David," it read. A chill ran down his spine. How did the site know his name? He was always careful to stay anonymous online. Determined not to be scared off, he continued. "How do you know my name?" he typed. The response was immediate. "We know many things. We know what you fear. We know what you desire." David felt a pang of unease, but brushed it off. "All right, prove it. What do I fear?" The screen stayed blank for a few seconds, then slowly, words began to appear. "You fear being alone, truly alone. You fear the dark, the silence, the emptiness. But most of all, you fear the things you cannot see." David's heart raced. The message struck a nerve. His mind flashed back to his childhood, to the nights he spent hiding under his blanket, afraid of the shadows in his room. Trying to regain his composure, he typed, "Very funny, but I'm not scared." The chat box remained silent for a moment, then a new message appeared. "Let's play a game, David. A game of whispers." Against his better judgment, David replied, "What kind of game?" The reply was instant. "Turn off your lights. All of them. Sit in the dark. Then we will whisper secrets to you." David hesitated. The idea seemed ridiculous, yet the curiosity was overwhelming. With a sigh, he got up and switched off every light in his apartment. The darkness enveloped him, and he returned to his computer, the glow of the screen the only source of illumination. "Done," he typed. "Good," the reply came. Now listen carefully. David strained his ears, but all he could hear was the faint hum of his computer. Seconds ticked by, and he felt increasingly foolish. Just as he was about to give up, he heard it, a faint whisper, so soft he almost missed it. David. The whisper sent a shiver down his spine. It was so close, as if someone were right behind him. He spun around, but there was no one there. Just the darkness and silence. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling. The whisper came again, this time clearer. "We are here, David. We are always here." Panic began to set in. He turned back to his computer and typed frantically. "What do you want?" The response was immediate. "We want you to see what truly lurks in the shadows." Suddenly, the screen went black. David's heart pounded in his chest. He tried to restart the computer, but it was unresponsive. The whispers grew louder, surrounding him, coming from all directions. "David, David, David." Desperate, he stumbled through the darkness, trying to find a light switch. The whispers followed him, growing more insistent and menacing. He could feel a presence in the room, something watching him, something getting closer. Finally, his hand found the switch. He flicked it on, but the light did nothing to dispel the darkness. It was as if the shadows had taken on a life of their own, swallowing the light. The whispers were deafening now, a chorus of voices chanting his name. David fell to his knees, clutching his head, trying to block out the sound. And then, as suddenly as they had started, the whispers stopped. Silence, utter and complete. David looked up, and his blood ran cold. Standing in front of him, barely visible in the darkness, was a figure. It had no face, no features, just a shadowy silhouette. The figure reached out, its hand inches from David's face. In that moment, David knew true terror. He scrambled backward, but there was nowhere to go. The figure advanced, its presence overwhelming. Just as the shadow was about to touch him, the lights came back on. The figure vanished, leaving David alone, shaking and gasping for breath. He glanced at his computer, now flickering back to life. The whispering web was gone, replaced by a blank screen. David never spoke of that night. He abandoned his exploration of the deep web, unable to shake the feeling that he was being watched, that the whispers were still out there, waiting. And sometimes, in the dead of night, he could still hear them, soft and sinister, reminding him of the darkness that lurks just beyond the light. Alex was always fascinated by the unknown. A computer science major with a penchant for the mysterious, he spent countless nights exploring the darker corners of the internet. The deep web, with its hidden layers and encrypted sites, became a playground for his curiosity. He'd read about illegal marketplaces, obscure forums, and secretive chat rooms, but one night, he stumbled upon something that chilled him to the bone: the silent market. The silent market was different from anything he had encountered before. Unlike other deep websites, it had no flashy graphics or daunting user interfaces. It was plain, almost innocuous, with a simple black background and white text that read, "The Silent Market, where the unseen is traded." Intrigued, Alex created an account using a pseudonym and logged in. The marketplace was divided into various sections, each labeled with cryptic titles: Echoes, Shadows, Whispers, and Specters. He clicked on Echoes and found a list of items for sale, but instead of drugs or weapons, they offered services that seemed otherworldly. Hear the voice of a lost loved one. Experience the final moments of a forgotten soul. See through the eyes of the dead. It had to be a hoax, Alex thought. But the reviews on each listing were overwhelmingly positive, with users recounting their chilling, yet convincing experiences. He decided to dig deeper and clicked on Whispers. Here, the offerings were even more bizarre. People claimed to sell secrets, not just ordinary secrets, but truths about the universe, the afterlife, and entities that defied comprehension. One listing caught his eye: the Whispering Doll. She tells you what you fear to know. The doll's description was minimal, but the reviews were detailed and unsettling. Users described hearing the doll whisper secrets about their lives that no one could possibly know. Against his better judgment, Alex decided to purchase the Whispering Doll. It was a small, old-fashioned porcelain doll with empty eyes and a cracked face. The seller promised it would arrive within 3 days. True to their word, a nondescript package arrived at Alex's doorstep exactly 3 days later. He opened the box to find the doll carefully wrapped in old newspaper. As he held it, an uneasy feeling washed over him. It felt heavier than it looked, almost as if it was imbued with some unseen force. He placed the doll on his desk and sat back, waiting. For the first few hours, nothing happened. Alex started to feel foolish, thinking he'd been scammed. But then, as the clock struck midnight, he heard it, a faint whisper, so soft he almost missed it. "Alex." He froze. The whisper came from the doll. He leaned in closer, his heart pounding. "Alex, I know what you fear." His breath caught in his throat. He hadn't told anyone about his fears, not even his closest friends. The doll's eyes seemed to follow him as he moved, its cracked face taking on an eerie, almost lifelike quality. "You fear the darkness, the silence, being alone." Alex's mind raced. How could this doll know his deepest fears? He backed away, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. "You fear what you cannot see, what watches you from the shadows." In a panic, Alex grabbed the doll and shoved it back into the box. He could still hear it whispering, muffled but persistent. Desperate, he ran out of his apartment and threw the box into the dumpster outside. He returned to his apartment, hoping that would be the end of it. But that night, as he lay in bed, the whispers returned. They were faint at first, then louder, echoing in his mind. "Alex, you cannot escape." He covered his ears, trying to block out the sound, but it was useless. The whispers seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. He could feel a presence in the room, watching him, waiting. Days turned into weeks, and Alex's life became a living nightmare. The whispers followed him everywhere, to his classes, the library, even in his dreams. He stopped sleeping, eating, and eventually dropped out of school. His friends grew worried, but he couldn't explain what was happening to him. Who would believe him? One night, unable to take it any longer, Alex returned to the deep web, hoping to find a way to rid himself of the doll's curse. He logged into the silent market, but the site was gone. In its place was a single message: "The price of knowing is high. The shadows never forget." Desperate, he searched for any trace of the seller, any clue that could help him. But it was as if the silent market had never existed. The whispers continued, relentless and cruel. "Alex, we are always here. We are always watching." In a final act of desperation, Alex left his apartment and drove to the edge of town, to an old bridge where people rarely went. He took the doll from the dumpster, its whispers now deafening, and tied it to a heavy rock. With all his strength, he hurled it into the river below, watching it sink into the dark waters. For a moment, there was silence. Alex let out a sigh of relief, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. He returned home, hoping that he had finally escaped the curse. But that night, as he lay in bed, he heard it again, a faint, familiar whisper. "Alex, the shadows never forget."